We'll call the meeting to order. The Board of Community Supervision. It is 10 o'clock a.m. on March the 24th, 2019. It's got 18 on your agenda, but it's 19. We'll make that correction, but with that being said, we'll call for invocation. May we all please stand?
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day and the opportunity to serve. We ask as we go forward that you open our eyes of understanding, for we all do what we do is pleasing in thy sight. Bless this meeting and all who gather here and serve. Amen.
Amen. Let us pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I just want to welcome everybody. I know we got some visitors with us, and I'm sure they will be recognized late in a few minutes. But at this time, let us start on this side, on the front row, and just state your name and what affiliation you are with. Don't shake your head. I'm going to put you on the spot, and we'll just start here and go down this side, and then come after the lady on the front row. We'll start with the lady on the back row and come this side, and then we'll come up on this side.
Alicia Holloway, Director of Field Services for the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles.
Okay.
I'm Sandra Thomas, the Director for Executive Operations for DCS.
I'm Jennifer Thomas, Executive Director for the Georgia Commission on Family Violence.
Barbara Neville, the Director of Misdemeanor Probation Oversight.
Tim Lewis, I'm the Training Coordinator for MPOU.
David Morrison, Director of Field Operations for DCS.
I'm Jonathan Jamie from the Waycross DCS office.
Brandon Henderson, Center Administrator in Rome, DRC.
Mike Kraft, Director of Field Services for DCS.
Michelle Stanley, Director of Reentry Services, DCS.
Patrick Holsey, Deputy Director of Field Operations for DCS.
Sherry Chambers, Director of Special Projects for DCS.
Nick Powell, Director of Strategic Planning and Research for DCS.
Natalie Esparza, Communications Specialist for DCS.
Rachel Peters, Director of Public Affairs for DCS.
Jamel Washington, Communications Specialist, DCS.
John K. Core, MPOU, DCS.
Tim Flowers, Compliance Monitor, MPOU.
Reginald Hewlett, Director of Training and Professional Development for DCS.
Alicia Smalley, Compliance Monitor for MPOU.
LaDonna Burney, DCS, MPOU, Compliance Monitor.
Liz Ashburn, Harper Landless for MPOU, DCS.
Jody Diller, District Director, District 3, DCS.
Tammy Stubbs, Data Operations, DCS.
James Berthman, Deputy Director of Field Operations, DCS.
Greg Dozier, Governor's Office. Cody Whitlock, Governor's Office.
Tommy Ratchford, also Governor's Office.
Brian Tukes, Director of Government Relations, DCS.
Philip Henson, Public Affairs Liaison, DCS.
Mike Yeager, retired Sheriff, currently with the U.S. Marshal Service on equipment.
Steve Hayes, Public Affairs, State Board of Pardons and Paroles.
Jeff Reese, DCS IT.
All right. Who else?
Ara Russell, DCS Board Liaison and Compliance Monitor with MPOU.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all. I'd just like to put a name with a face. You hear a lot of people names, but you never recognize them, and now we can put a name with a face. So thank you all for allowing me to do that. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, and that's the. Can we silence all the phones, please? The approval of the proposed March 21st, 2019 agenda. With the correction of the date that's on it in print. Could I get a motion to approve?
Motion we adopt.
Okay, it's been properly motioned and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Here, none. Review and the next item on the agenda is item number 6, and that's the approval of the December 20th, 2018 minutes. And I think that those have been previously sent out to you all. And after you review those, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve, sir.
So properly motioned, and could I get a second? All those are in any further discussion on the approval of the December 20th minutes? Here none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed, like sign? Here none. Commissioners report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board, and good morning to all of our guests, especially Mr. Ratchford and Mr. Whitlock. Appreciate you joining us here this morning. I'll be brief in my remarks. I wanted to first send out congratulations to Shalandra Robertson, who received the Joe Keegan Award at APPA for work with victim services. That was a joint nomination with State Board of Pardons and Paroles, Corrections, and Community Supervision. And she did an excellent job.
She did.
In receiving her award, represented Georgia very, very well. So very proud of her. In April, we'll be hosting National Institute of Correction Network meeting in Savannah. That's where my counterparts throughout the nation will be coming together to meet and discuss various topics in the future of community supervision. So we're looking forward to hosting them. I want to thank Commissioner Ward for your assistance with some of the nice memorabilia that they'll get when leaving to remember the state by, but we're happy to be hosting them. Just got news this morning that Senate Appropriations, our budget, while we didn't get everything we asked for, we're certainly appreciative of what we did get. So it looks like we will be expanding our prison reentry initiative, those sites, to 10 areas. And we'll also be moving forward with our courtroom specialist position that Director Morrison will be talking about here in a little bit. We did not have any legislation this year to submit. I will say one piece of legislation I was very pleased to see, and that's the starting back the Criminal Justice Reform Council. That's one thing. But the other thing I was very pleased to see is the addition of those who are going to be responsible for carrying it out will now have a place at the table. And I think, Terry, parole actually had been added onto that. So that was very, very good, and we certainly appreciate that. I think it'll help things to move even better. Recently had an agency head meeting. Highlight I want to share with you is the governor's executive order of sexual harassment training as well as policy acknowledgement. In essence, every employee in the executive branch of government, state, will have to receive that training annually and acknowledge that policy annually. The first round of training is to be completed by June 1st. It is 3 phases. One phase targets all state employees. The second phase deals with managers or supervisors. They will have an additional layer of training. And then there's a third tier of training for investigators that are sent over from each office or agency, I should say. We have 4 investigators we've identified, submitted their names, so that will be forthcoming. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Recently, I don't get out in the field as much as I would like to, but I did have the pleasure to attend the Winder DRC graduation and the Dahlonega DRC graduation. And I always want to brag on the staff. Those 2 graduations were symbolic of what we have in over 35 other day reporting centers throughout the state. But I can't say enough when you see families reunited and you see mothers getting their children back, and when you see fathers that are 70 years old crying, saying, I can't remember the last time I've seen my son or daughter sober. At the end of the day, that's really what it's about, and that's happening throughout the state. The good work continues with community supervision. Thus far, we've had 14 visits from other states. I think with National Institute of Corrections coming in April shows that we're on the right track. We'll never acknowledge or admit that we're perfect, but we're going to do everything we can to become perfect. And that's by learning from others and, of course, focusing on next practices. One area that we continue to be concerned with is what they refer to as our transitional age youth. That's the group age 17 to 25. We are wanting to take a hard focus on that population. I know previously when I was at parole, we looked and it represented 10% of the population, but it was also 50% of the revocations. And we're seeing the same trend under community supervision, specifically probation and parole. So we're going to be taking a hard look at that. There quite candidly is not a lot of research out there. So we're hoping to be able to explore that a little bit more and see what we can do to address that particular population, because those are the ones that keep coming back on a very frequent basis. And as you know, I can't speak for females, but I have read the research, the male brain is not fully developed until 25. Some will argue later, but so we've got to target those efforts. The other thing is, we took a hard look at homelessness, and we set a pretty ambitious goal, and that's to have zero homelessness for those that are under supervision. David Morrison will be telling you some of our efforts, but my belief is we're associated not just with the resources we have, but other avenues of resources. And if you're under our supervision, you need to have a roof over your head, and you need to have stability. So we've been giving a focus on that, and I think you'll see some very positive results as Director Morrison will bring forward. Board appointments, as you know, with Sheriff Yeager, his appointment to the Marshal Service, the Governor's Office is aware of that vacant seat. So as soon as I hear of an appointment, I will certainly let you know. And finally, for my report, you'll see in your folder DCS population. We report this annually to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. This is just a summary of all those under our supervision. I want to compliment Dr. Nick Powell for the work he has done. If you want to see the background of the data that goes in this, I would refer you to Nick, and we can certainly provide it, but we're required to submit this on an annual basis, and it's just a good snapshot of the work we have underway. We also serve this somewhat as a dashboard when we compare it year to year to see where the numbers are going. So I just wanted to share that with you. And two other things I failed to mention. Victim Visitors Day in Augusta in April. We will continue to be providing support with that, especially with the exit interviews. And then we will continue to participate in something that actually Sheriff Yeager started in Coweta County, the Man Tracker training.
Yeah. That
continues to be excellent training for our officers, and it's a nice legacy to have, Sheriff. I will give the cautionary statement: do not Google Man Tracker. I just
not on the state computer.
Yeah, exactly. Do on your own computer's your business. I'm just cautioning you not to do that. But before I move to the next thing, are there any questions concerning my comments or remarks or updates?
Any from the board? Hearing none.
All right. Here comes the fun stuff. Being able to recognize former board members that have moved on to bigger and better things. The first one, and Mr. Dozier, if you'll come join me. Yes. Now, here's the thing. Forgive me. I grew up reading the everyday version of the Bible, today's English version. These things are written in King James. All right, so bear with me here. But here's the good news about Greg. He knows our business. Here's the bad news about Greg. He knows our business. So you better be straight up when you go over there and talk, because he knows. He has been around a long time, Greg, and I say in all sincerity, not just to DCS, but to the state as well as the criminal justice system, all that you have done. But Whereas as a result of interagency coordination and collaboration, DCS commenced operations on July 1 of 2015 through the passage of House Bill 310. Due to his noteworthy contributions that have enhanced public safety and his deep commitment to the reformation of Georgia's criminal justice system, Greg Dozier was unanimously elected to serve as the second chairman for the Board of Community Supervision. In this role, Chairman Dozier's steady leadership to the Board of Community Supervision become a stabilizing force for a growing agency and has positioned the department to be an innovative presence in the field of community supervision for years to come. Greg Dozier is a lifelong public servant whose acumen and talents have led him distinctively to serve in various positions of leadership throughout the state and nation. However, regardless of the many obligations placed on his attention, Greg remains committed to family, maintains a humble devotion to the citizens of Georgia, and is recognized by his peers as a person of sound judgment and noble character. Therefore, be it now hereby resolved, the undersigned members of the Board of Community Supervision desire to commend the distinguished contributions of Greg Dozier for the outstanding service to the Georgia Department of Community Supervision and the employees thereof. Thank you. Would you like to make any remarks? You certainly don't have to.
Thank y'all.
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Absolutely.
Yep.
Now the next gentleman, despite being an Auburn University fan, never forget that, something I've always admired about Sheriff Yeager or Marshal Yeager, which I still wouldn't mind being Festus in your operation if you have an opening. And I reminded folks when Sheriff Yeager first came onto the board, he actually started as a surveillance officer for the Department of Corrections. I should say that's how I got to know him back in the day. He's been on the front lines of our work, and he knows our work. And he continued to do a stellar job in every law enforcement position. I looked at him as a mentor on post. I learned a lot of what to do and not mess up as much. When I did mess up, it's because I wasn't paying close enough attention to him. But he is a man of just character and honor and a true public servant. And Sheriff, if you'll come with me. As a result of interagency coordination and collaboration, sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? The Department of Community Supervision commenced operations on July 1 through the passage of House Bill 310. Through his unwavering devotion to the public safety of all Georgians and his support of meaningful criminal justice reform, Sheriff Mike Yeager was appointed by Governor Nathan Deal to serve as one of the inaugural members of the Board of Community Supervision. Sheriff Yeager's insightful, thoughtful, and careful leadership to the Board of Community Supervision provided the developing agency with a firm foundation and has positioned the department as a national leader in the field of community supervision. Sheriff Yeager is a lifelong public servant whose unique talents has led him to honorably serve at prestigious roles throughout the state and nation. However, despite his many commitments, Sheriff Yeager prioritizes also his family, cultivates lasting friendships, and is widely respected for his cheerful and welcoming disposition. Therefore, be it now hereby resolved, the undersigned members of the Board of Community Supervision desire to commend the distinguished contributions of Sheriff Mike Yeager for his outstanding service to the Georgia Department of Community Supervision and the employees thereof. Congratulations, Sheriff. Thank you.
I was just told the other day that, and DCS has played a big role, sent a lot of people down there, but registration opened March 1. Now this was probably about 10 days ago when I spoke to them. There was over 400 people that registered.
Incredible. Absolutely.
And it'll stay open until the middle of April.
It is excellent training, and it also provides an opportunity for other law enforcement entities to network and understand each other's professions. At this time, I'm going to call on our Sandra Thomas, Director of Executive Operations, to share some good news and some spotlight on some special employees we have with us. Sandra?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
To the board. Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to be able to recognize some of our staff this morning. I would like to recognize two of our amazing staff this morning. First, I'd like to recognize our Center Administrator out of the Rome Circuit. Officer Henry, can you come forward, please?
You can get by all these colorful socks.
Yeah.
Officer Brandon Henderson, he's a newly promoted Center Administrator, so congratulations on that as well. He's out of the Rome Circuit. Officer Henderson began his career in law enforcement in 2001 as a correctional officer at the Hayes State Prison. He began working in community corrections in 2012 as a probation officer. But we're not recognizing Officer Henderson for all the accolades that he has had with us, but for being an exceptional person. Officer Henderson and his wife has been foster parents since 2012, and they were the winners of the 2016 Foster Parents of the Year in Regional 1. Since becoming foster parents, the Hendersons have welcomed 43 children into their lives. Not only are they great foster parents, but they've adopted 2 beautiful children with special needs. As a parent, when you are able to love and raise children of your own or to be your own, that means that tells me that you're a special person. And Officer Henderson, being a good employee that he is, he sent a message through our public affairs office that Fox 5 wanted to do a news story about his daughter, and there was a possibility that DCS could be mentioned. So he sent that through like he should have, and we said yes, of course. And I'm gonna let us show this video. Jeff.
Silence. Leah Henderson has a rare genetic condition. It's caused her to lose both hearing and her ears and her vision as well. But as the Fox Medical Team's Beth Galvin explains now, a cochlear implant is helping Leah and her parents communicate.
She's 8 now, but Leah Henderson first came into her parents, Brandon and Breezy Henderson's lives when she was 15 months old as their very first foster child. With 3 kids of their own, the Somerville, Georgia couple had requested an older child.
My wife called me. She said, EFAX is on their way with a baby. I said, what? A baby? I said, well, we don't do babies.
And when I got home, he was holding her, and she was asleep. And she was just precious.
And early on, the Hendersons noticed that Leah didn't seem to be hearing or seeing things around her. They put her down and she wouldn't move.
The exact same place that we would set her would be the exact same place that we would come back.
But they fell in love with Leah, and at 2 adopted her. Soon, the doctor was giving them a list of possible diagnoses for what was going on with Leah. One was Alström syndrome.
When I remember sitting down and thinking, please don't let it be this.
But it was Alström syndrome, a rare progressive condition that affects Leah's whole body. She was quickly losing her vision and hearing. So they tried hearing aids, and when that didn't work, they joined a research study in Boston.
And the specialist, she said, Leah needs cochlear implants, and we'll do the surgery.
But their health insurance wouldn't cover an out-of-state surgery, and Leah has heart issues that make anesthesia riskier for her. So here at Wellstar North Fulton Hospital, otologist Dr. Jennifer Torino, a surgeon who specializes in ear problems, agreed to pull together a special pediatric team to perform the cochlear implant surgery for Leah.
The one thing that really made me know this was the right thing for Leah was that you could see she had so much going on the inside, and she just couldn't communicate it to us.
4 weeks after her operation, with her parents videotaping, Leah's implant was turned on. It will take time for her brain to learn to process sound, but already the Hendersons feel like a door is reopening for her.
She repeats words back to us very well. She's starting to associate words with objects, to stuff that we've never been able to do with her.
I asked her questions and she answered me with words. Those words were all trapped in there. She was just waiting to let them go. So it was very exciting.
And Breezy Henderson says Leah has taught them so much.
I never give up. It's always worth the fight.
Beth Galvin for the Fox Medical Team.
Outstanding people, outstanding citizens, and it takes people like you to make the world a better place. So that's just why we're wanting to honor you for the type of caliber of person that you are, and we're so proud to have you a part of DCS. So thank you.
Yesterday, she had her second surgery to install another device in her other ear, so she'll be the first kid in the United States who's deafblind with bilateral cochlear implants. It'll be quite some time before we get it to turn on. She got to heal up from the surgery, but we're hoping for a good recovery and some better prognosis. I mean, she's saying things to us that we never thought. I'm actually having conversations with my kid, so it's amazing. We're all community servants here. I mean, that's what we do, we serve our community.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
If we had more people like you in this world, it would be a better place. So thank you very much.
Next, we'd like to recognize Officer Jonathan James. Can you please come forward? Officer Jamie is a CSO from the Waycross Judicial Circuit. He's been an officer for a little over a year. Officer James deserves recognition for his ability to act very quickly in order to save a life. On January 23rd, 2019 at 11:23 p.m., Officer James was conducting field supervision in Brantley County, Georgia. When Brantley County dispatched called out a code red on an unresponsive male located at a nearby residence, Officer Jamie was the first law enforcement to arrive on the scene. The subject had no pulse and was not breathing. There was a next door neighbor. He was an off-duty paramedic helping at the time, and he had an oxygen valve mask on the subject, attempting to assist the subject to breathe. Officer Jamie kneeled beside the subject and began to administer chest compressions. After about 10 minutes, they were able to get the subject breathing again, but not a normal breathing pattern. The subject still didn't have a pulse. The Brantley County EMS rescue team arrived on the scene and administered medication to the subject, and the rescue team was able to utilize an AED on the subject to bring his pulse back. The rescue team discovered that the subject possibly overdosed on some medication, and at that time they administered Narcan in the subject's arm. Because of Brandon's quick response, he was able to help save a man's life, and for that, Officer James, we want to recognize you at this time for your bravery, your willingness to help when in need. You did exactly what we trained you to do. You rendered aid, and you rendered when you could have easily not heard that call. So thank you so much. We appreciate all that you've done, and we appreciate you for your service. Thank you.
At this time, we will move to the next item, item 8, and that's our committee reports, community supervision. Mr. Morrison. Mr. Morrison.
Good morning. Those two presentations certainly places the trivial parts of life in perspective. So thank you guys for being such caliber individuals that you are. It's greatly honored to work next to you. As far as field operation goes, we recently had 350 officers assigned over a 10-day period to the Super Bowl, conducting primarily security at the Georgia World Congress Center. And James Bergman and his team, James, did an excellent job representing DCS, maintaining security, and I want to thank you for that. In addition to that, this last week we had 48 individuals assigned over a 3-day period conducting security at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Savannah, again under James's supervision. So James, thank you for your leadership and for your team. They always do an excellent job and represent DCS very well. As you know, I've spoken before about the automated case review. That has been fully deployed and is working as expected. Tammy is spearheading that and is working on the algorithm in the background to ensure that it is producing enough and not too many automated case reviews. So Tammy, good work on that. We're also in the process of piloting a new emergency communication device, and we've piloted with InZone, which is a mobile app with a wireless shoulder mic that allows two-way communication. It's monitored via GPS, and it also has a panic button on the mic to allow with the coordinates relayed to the individuals assigned to monitoring the system to get resources to officers that are in need. So we're very, very excited about that. We're piloting 25 units in Augusta, as well as some of the IRT team members in joint operations. So very, very excited about that. As you know, on a statewide agency, it's very difficult to keep up with radios. We've year after year attempted to keep up with the locals and thrown good money after bad, trying to align the radios, and we feel like this is a very good potential to fill that gap, and much more cost effective as well. Court Specialist continues to roll out successfully. We currently have 38 court specialists in place, which has allowed us to relocate 48 officers who were not previously carrying caseloads to carrying caseloads, which again, pulling down that caseload average. The ultimate goal within the next couple of weeks is to have 49 court specialists in place. So very excited about that. Tammy Stubbs, again, our IT liaison, continues to do training as far as data entry and the philosophy of supervision while we're collecting the data that we're collecting. She's done 8 districts and has only 2 left to do. So good work on that, Tammy. I know you've been burning up the roads, and we appreciate you. Very invaluable position that you hold. Commissioner Nail recently tasked us with a goal, and he mentioned this in his comments, of homelessness. The goal is to reach 0. As you guys know, if you don't have a roof over your head, not much else matters. Employment, substance abuse, so forth and so on. If you don't have a safe place to live, it really doesn't much matter on anything else. In the beginning of January, we had 1,376 under our supervision that were homeless. As of February, we brought that number down to 1,152. And I'm pleased to announce that in March, it's down to 765. So that has been a combination of data entry correction, but also collaboration with my craft shop with RPH and field services, as well as the Thor, re-entry with Michelle Stanley's shop, with community coordinators and housing coordinators, and then also efforts at the local level with officers, placing focus on that, trying to ensure that we reach the goal of 0. So making very good progress on that matter. Unless there are any questions, that's the end of my presentation or report out.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reentry Services, Ms. Michelle Stanley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I mentioned at the last board meeting that ARS was finishing up the final evaluation of the Georgia PRI initiative, so I wanted to share some highlights with you all today from the evaluation. The evaluation covered the time period from 2014 to 2018. and it was a three-phase site. Phase 1 consisted of Bibb, Chatham, Doherty, Fulton, Muskogee, and Richmond County. Phase 2 in 16 covered DeKalb, Floyd, Hall, Lowndes, and Troup County. And then in 2017, Phase 3 came on board with Clayton, Cobb, Douglas, Gwinnett, Liberty, and Newton. I want to share those counties as I go ahead with some of the outcomes so you know the context. BGA tasked us with a 15% rate of reduction in reconviction through that application for the grant. We respectively completed a 14% overall reduction in recidivism in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Some sites even saw as much as 30% in their reduction, and that was contributed to and Excuse me. Some notable outcomes and successes was the risk of arrest reduced by 11% in Phase 1 and 20% in the Phase 2 sites. Arrest of felony arrest reduced by 15% in Phase 1 and 21% in Phase 2 sites. Overall, our InReach staff had 27,000 contacts and completed 18,000 case plan with those that are in prison waiting to transition back to the community. Our community coordinators were able to establish 3,865 new resources to work with those individuals being released, and that was through their community engagement that not only provided resources for those that's releasing, but also that engagement helped with the stigma around those returning back to their communities. Also noted through the evaluation that participants in the PRI program got better jobs and they got jobs quicker than non-participants. We were also able to train 1,300 DCS staff and community providers in ESP, our Enhanced Supervision Program, and we was only tasked with doing 750 according to the grant application. The ESP model also rolled out into the portal, which allowed that communication from the body cameras that was purchased through the grant as well and given to each officer to be recorded back in the case notes, so we have that interaction in the portal as well. Those were successes, but we have a few challenges, and I wanted to kind of share a few of those with you, and it was kind of around our InReach model. Initially, we was patterning and posting a model behind the Michigan model, and we weren't quite able to implement everything completely the way the Michigan model was designed. With that, we had challenges with the facility staging being discontinued, as well as us not being able to place InReach staff in every facility. However, they were tasked with covering 3 to 4 facilities. However, as we move forward, we'll be able to bring that number down to having 1 InReach per facility or no more than 2. So that should help us, along with us redeveloping and repurposing their job duties, to make sure that we're getting the full intent from that program with those that are inside before they're released. Also, the Phase 3 sites not coming on board into 2017 didn't allow a full 2-year time frame for ARS to be able to monitor their progress. However, at the end of 18, it was trending very favorably. ARS has agreed to continue to track them so that we will know truly how they finish as well in the Phase 3 sites. In summary, there was sufficient evidence according to the evaluation to show that the PRI met BJA's recidivism reduction targets for the 2-year reconviction targets, and we were proud to be able to do that, even with a slow start in those first couple of years, but to be able to make up some traction in those latter years and still be able to finish at an overall 14%, we were very pleased. With that, as we look to move forward with our statewide expansion, Commissioner mentioned about PRI expanding to 10 additional sites. We plan to use the blueprint from those 17 counties to be able to roll it out, not just a county focus, but more of a circuit focus, so that we're able to reach and cover more. It's projected to be about 15,000 offenders that's going to release in this calendar year. So of course, being able to bring on those additional 10 sites, both community coordination and InReach, will help us be able to meet that target a lot better. The circuits that we would look to expand to next, based on those highest releasing numbers, is going to be the Cherokee Circuit, Griffin, Lookout Mountain, Okmulgee, Brunswick, Conasquaga, Waycross, Ogeechee, Middle, and Northern. Those were the most notable highlights. Of course, if you would like to read the evaluation, it was a little over 120 pages. We'd be more than happy to share it with you, but those were the most notable outcomes. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions from the board? Michelle, when you compare it with the Michigan model, did that take into consideration the population difference?
That was a big part of it too. Our population, of course, is a lot larger than Michigan, as well as we didn't have the funds targeted to be able to bring providers inside as well. That was a couple of things that we missed. But what we have seen at the Metro facility, we would like to use that as a model. Commissioner Ward, we've been partnering with them from the beginning. So we have community coordinators inside, we have in-reach staff inside, we're bringing providers in. So we're actually able to see a little bit more of that model come to fruition. But of course, we weren't able to do that across the state with not having enough money or manpower to be able to do it. And then of course, as you mentioned, the population gets so much larger.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, one thing I will add, the staging component that Michigan utilized, it just was not conducive to GDC's operations. I mean, it just wasn't. So that, from the get-go, we learned that very quickly. That's the last thing you want to do is go in and upset their operations.
Those are type things to where when you start comparing states to state, when you look at the makeup of facility to facility, you're going to run into those inroads. So, but a hybrid type thing, we're still meeting those benchmarks. Thank you. All right, field services, Mr. Mike Kraft.
Good morning, Chair, Board, and distinguished guests. The University of Georgia continues its assessment of our day reporting centers. UGA is looking at 37 programs throughout the state and giving an assessment of how we're doing. Are we following what we need to in these programs? They're approximately halfway through the assessment. Initial site visits should be concluded by the second week of May. Upon completion, there'll be a data analysis this summer with a final report coming out on August 1st. Initial indications look promising. Most important, it's on time, it's on track, and it's on budget. So we're looking forward to UGA's assessment of the programming that we do at our day reporting centers come August. Commissioner Nell spoke about day reporting center graduations. We actually have one this week coming up in Valdosta on Friday at 11 a.m. at the Department of Labor office down there. So we encourage anybody that can go see our DRC graduation in Valdosta to do so. Reentry partnership housing continues to increase housing availability. We've seen the largest utilization of funds for reentry partnership housing for homeless individuals released from prison onto parole, for homeless offenders under supervision of our agency, and for the accountability court participants. We continue to partner with the Department of Corrections, Department of Community Affairs, Council of Accountability Court judges, and CJCC to improve this program. For the current year, we still have a quarter left, we've had 666 placements, or 83 average a month of individuals homeless being placed in housing. Now, that's significantly up from 2017, where we had 488 placements a year, or an average of 41 per month. Active housing providers, we're currently at 36, where if you look back at 2017, we had 29 providers. And we actually have several more that are in the pipeline right now. So that is a great partnership. It puts people in housing, as David spoke about earlier. And our goal is to continue to improve that program. In light of that, in an effort to expand the reentry partnership housing and the transitional housing for offender reentry, or THOR, the housing team attended a Department of Community Affairs housing symposium in Savannah, February 4th through the 6th. In addition to Tammy Herring, Assistant Brian Dinopoli of DCA, and his presentation on the RPH program, which was a full house, which we were happy to see. The housing staff learned skills to improve the housing programs, and it also gave us a chance to network with individuals that do provide housing and try to bring them in the fold. And so several of those in the pipeline that we're working on now actually were from some of those contacts we had down in Savannah. And then finally, DFACS and DCS met in February to discuss ways to continue to partner between the agencies, as we often have common ground in the individuals that we serve and their families. We continue to look for those opportunities to work together for the good of our communities. So thank you to Director Rawlings and Board Member Rawlings, who was an active participant in the meeting, and to our further partnerships as we move forward. So are there any questions before I leave?
Any questions? Mike, would you say that Georgia has it's kind of like you'll see some some individuals that in the housing industry that give a forecast for is the homes that's going to be coming available for the homeless population. Do you see that trend in Georgia stabilizing to where that in itself can help us with the decrease in the homeless population that's under our state care?
You know, I think with the good thing is working with the Department of Community Affairs. I actually serve on the Balanced State Continuum of Care for housing. With all of us basically in lockstep, I think that enhances our ability in Georgia. So as housing is coming available, if we can locate it and we can put our people in it, that's a plus for us. So I think that the partnerships, we don't tend to have the silos, and I think that's a plus for Georgia. So I'm hoping that we'll get more improvement as time goes on to put more people in housing.
Well, excellent.
I kind of have a curiosity question, but what do you think was the predominant factor that increased the 24 to 36 providers? What was that? What caused the enhancement?
You know, I think that it is the work of everybody trying to outreach and bring more in. There's a lot of housing providers in the state that aren't a part of RPH or Thor, and they really don't necessarily see their interest to become a member of it. We always take advantage of the housing symposiums that are throughout the state to appear and present. We show up at the accountability courts and present there. And so if there's those housing providers that are at these other conferences or meetings, we're doing all we can to bring them into the fold for us. Because if you're already providing housing for the homeless, it's in your interest to get sure money coming in to house our folks. Yeah. And that's where our push is on that.
Thank
you. And I think targeted outreach, and then everywhere we can streamline the process to make it less challenging for them to come to the table.
Something there.
Yep, absolutely.
And we're working on that now to make it easier to become a housing provider. Perfect.
Is there any further questions? Thank you, Mike. Next item is Barbara Neville with the misdemeanor probation oversight.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We are diligently working on our 100% of our audits for 2019. We have 78 providers at the moment. 53 of them are governmental, 25 are private. 783 service agreements, 148 of those are governmental, 635 are private, and we have 950 employees. In your packet, I did include the fiscal year 2018 annual report for you to read at your leisure. But I did want to bring up that we began in 2016 with baseline audits, and then of course we did initiate our training. And in 2017, we concentrated our training topics on those areas that we identified from our baseline audits. In 2018, we refined that training to kind of concentrate not only on those baseline findings or areas that we saw needed to be addressed, but we also initiated some effective supervision. And we are continuing to do that again in 2019. We have seen a decline in the findings since we've initiated the training. And so with that being said, if it pleases the board, I'd like to turn my presentation over to my training coordinator so he can give you kind of a rundown, brief overview of what we've been accomplishing.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman and Board. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara, for this opportunity. After coming on board and stepping into this position in January of 2017, kind of getting my marching orders from Barbara and developing an understanding of what the executive management team wanted to try to accomplish with this new role, I kind of set out and I looked at three things. It was related to misdemeanor world, and one of those was the availability of training. Historically, there was not a lot of training available that was specific to the needs of misdemeanor staff or misdemeanor offenders, misdemeanor operations. So we set out to try to fill that void, and we've been able to accomplish that to a great degree. In your package this morning, there is a copy of the presentations that we've developed. At this point, we've got 34 presentations that are specific to misdemeanor activities here in the state, agencies and staff. When our attendees come to our sessions, we provide those presentations to them, so that gives them an opportunity to take that back to their local operations, continue to use those as a reference tool, and for their own in-house trainings. Another aspect that we attacked was the accessibility of training. With 70 some odd different agencies out there, many of them are small, and their budgetary restraints or resource restraints is very difficult sometimes for them to assess training that might have been available at Gypstick or wherever it might be. And I want to mention a little bit what we're going to do as a future target for moving our presentations to a digital format. But one of the things based on the feedback I've received and my experience is there's still a great need and desire within the misdemeanor ranks to kind of have that classical classroom setting where they can come together and network. And it gives them an opportunity to develop relationships, to understand who their neighbors are, so that on the business side of things, if they ever need to transfer a case, they've got an understanding of who that is. And also we attack some of the aspects of we're all in this together. We're not fighting against each other. One of the things that Barbara has stressed since I've been a part of the team is that we are all in this together. And we talk about, we're not there to talk about the pros and cons of public or private or city or county. We're there to raise the standards for all of us. And with that being said, I created a co-host role, so that we're kind of like a circuit preacher. If you got a pulpit in the tent, we'll come preach. So what the co-host responsibilities are, and I kind of began to recruit some friends, and Steve and Michael, I recruited them, and both of their agencies has co-hosted a role. They're able to locate a training site in their area that's at no cost to them and no cost to DCS. They provide light refreshments and whatnot. So the providers in their areas, we can go there. So to this point in time, since our first one in May of 2017, we've held 28 events in 24 different cities across the state with 20 different agencies serving as co-hosts, and we've had over 700 attendees at our events. We've already had 3 events this year. We've got 12 scheduled through the end of the year, and of those 12, 3 of those are new providers and new cities. We'll be going to Roswell, Nahunta, and Hayhira. So we're trying to go below the gnat line, as they like to say, and go wherever we're needed. The third thing is with accountability. Historically, in the days prior to DCS, under the Probation Advisory Council, when the compliance monitors would go out, they would look into the training aspects of things to see if they were adhering and complying with the training requirements, but that was whenever they would go out. There was really no tracking of the 6 months orientation or the calendar year in-service process. So we've initiated a program by which, on an ongoing basis, we track compliance with that 6-month requirement as well as the annual in-service requirement at the end of the year. And I think all the providers have adapted to that process well. And actually, I think it helps them when we are able to kind of tap them. Don't forget your 6 months is coming up. And I think that's been a positive, and they've responded well to that. As we've gone through the past couple of years, very fortunate to collaborate with a lot of folks to help make these things successful. Jennifer and the folks over at the Domestic Violence Commission, they participate every year. They provided a 2-hour session. They're doing so again this year. It's been awesome. I've leaned on Jimmy Sykes and our folks at the DCS Academy. They've been very involved. Last year, with the new program DBHDD was rolling out, we had them involved in the process. So I'm very fortunate to have had all that sort of support. This year, actually coming up next week, is a new endeavor that we collaborated with Lori Massengale with DCS Academy. Was very helpful in creating. One of the things we're going to try to do is create some specialty programs. Next week, down at Gypstick, we're hosting our first. It's kind of a post-IT-like train-the-trainer type event, and it's to try to help provide an opportunity for the providers to enhance the staff development within their own operations so that it'll enhance their internal training. It'll also enable us to kind of build a pool of trainers that are familiar with what's going on in the misdemeanor world that maybe I can utilize as I go to Nahunta and Springfield and Donaldsonville and other places around the state. So we've got that coming up just next week, and we've already got a second session scheduled for June. We're going to be working on a similar type program to enhance management supervisory opportunities within, kind of just like we're focusing on a trainer, we're going to try to help the providers by offering them some management training. And as I mentioned briefly before, by the end of the year, we're going to start turning our sights on trying to help make some of these presentations in the digital format so that those will be available to them 24/7. So thankful for Barbara and her support, our MPOU team. They've been a huge help to me. A lot of the information that I get, I'll contact them and say, hey, what are you seeing? What is an area that we can work on? Actually, in your presentation packet, the last one that you see there is what we look for. It's something we're doing this year. It's a 4-hour session specifically on some of the feedback I've received from our compliance monitors. We're taking that afternoon. We're doing kind of some heavy lecture and training, and then we're actually, the last little bit of it is utilizing some practical exercises where people are doing and they're filling out tolling affidavits or warrants or petitions or whatnot. So with that said, if you have any questions of me?
Is there any questions?
I actually have one.
All right.
I used to work at CSRA misdemeanor probation. I believe Mr. Steve is still a part of that. First, I have a comment and a question. Comment is I appreciate the streamlining of the training. Back when I was at misdemeanor probation, I didn't believe the training was it was efficient, but I don't believe it was streamlined to where it was. You were talking about how you're getting co-hosts, you're getting other agencies to collaborate. The question I had was what in your findings, Ms. Barber mentioned that the findings were actually going down since they started the audits back in 2016 and 2017, I believe. In what areas do you still see a problem? Do you see it in the tolling of the warrants or data entry?
I would kind of have to lean on our compliance monitors to give you a detailed answer on that.
We're still seeing areas of tolling, pay only, and case management, case classification. Typically, it's in the larger areas where their caseloads are higher. It's not necessarily because of just they're not doing what they need to be doing. So the training aspect is there, and I appreciate him. He's done an amazing job. So if we do have the findings, what we're seeing is a decline or decrease in those types of findings where it just was a finding because they just didn't know how to do it properly.
Anything else?
And I'll make a comment toward that, Barbara, and appreciate everything that you've done in your leadership, and definitely Tim. But what I hear from our providers is that when you have the oversight function, the auditing function, you're saying these are things you need to improve on. You don't have the resource to go to learn how to do that. Now you have both sides of the coin. You're doing a great job of that. So,
Barbara, I have a question just for understanding on the fees that are collected. Are those standardized across the state, or is it contract by contract? I'm guessing trying to determine for an offender, is every offender paying about the same on those fees?
Yeah, they're contract to contract service agreement, but it is approximately between $35 and $45.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the Georgia Commission on Family Violence. Report out, Ms. Thomas.
So thank you, and good morning. I just have a really brief update. I wanted to invite you all to go ahead now and save September 8th through September 11th on your calendars for our annual conference. This is the 25th conference for the Georgia Commission on Family Violence. So we're now, for some of our members, their brains have developed. So so the conference theme this year will be 25 years ago to 25 years ahead, supporting survivors and restoring hope. We have made the request to CJCC to provide scholarships again this year for 49 DCS officers and staff members, and so we anticipate that request to be approved. We're in Athens, so we're excited to be there near the university, and we'll be partnering with the School of Social Work to bring one of our presenters to a university-wide event. The keynote speakers for this event, the first day is Vanessa McNeil. She will open our conference on Monday. She's an award-winning documentary filmmaker and national speaker and a survivor of sexual abuse. She'll be showing 2 of her documentaries at the conference. The first is Grid Shock. This is a documentary that highlights the hidden and disturbing realities of sex trafficking in Iowa. And when you watch this documentary, it's very similar, sort of Georgia, rural areas. Folks think this is a metro issue. It is not. It's a statewide issue, and so it felt very similar to sort of what we're seeing here in Georgia. So she'll be showing that documentary on Monday morning. And then the other documentary that she has put together is called Voiceless. And this is the stories of 5 male survivors of sexual assault. So really wanting to highlight that this is not just an issue that happens to women, that we definitely see this across the board. So we have partnered with our commission member, Dr. Che, at the School of Social Work, as I said. It will be bringing a university-wide event on Monday night with Vanessa McNeil to show Gridshot to anyone who should show up, and we'll have a question and answer with her for those students. On day 2, our keynote speaker is Melissa Jelston. She is a writer and editor for Huffington Post and has done extensive writing on gender-based violence. And so she'll be speaking to us on Tuesday. The last day of the last keynote speaker for Wednesday is a collaborative group of folks from High Point, North Carolina. They have an interagency community-based model of ending family violence in their community by holding those offenders accountable. And they have seen an enormous reduction in incidences and definitely homicides since the work they've been doing. And so we want to bring those folks in to talk with us about how we can implement and look at that here in our state. We'll be offering 30 workshops over a 2.5-day period, and we'll start on Sunday afternoon with our commission meeting, as we usually do, and end on Wednesday at noon. For more information, you can take a look at our website. We also already have hotel agreements, so if you want to book your rooms, those rates are already out there and rooms are already being booked. Registration will open end of May, 1st of June. For this, we hope to get our numbers to 650 again this year like we did last year. And if you're interested in tabling or partnering or being part of this event, let us know. All right.
Any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Item number 10 is old business or unfinished business to be brought forth. Hearing none. Any new business? Hearing none, moving on to item number 12, and that's the adjournment. All those in favor? Aye. That concludes the meeting. The time now is 11:03 a.m.